We are doing a valve cover gaskets on this beautiful Mercedes engines, M113 E50 variant. Mercedes made a number of different variants of the M113, but this one here is the naturally aspirated one. Let's jump right in. Being in this is an old car, guys, and although we are only doing a valve cover gaskets, to get access to the valve cover gaskets, there's a number of plastic components involved in this job, and chances are they're going to be brittle and they're going to break. Valve cover gaskets are right here, A113, 016, 03, 21, and 02, 21 OE, and these are the original manufacturer gaskets, and it seems the consensus on the internet is that going with the manufacturer, the original manufacturer one, is the best option. Also, new screws for the breathers on top of the valve covers that you're going to want to change from the aluminum ones to the steel ones, because the consensus is they tend to break. The threads on the extra screws breaks. The connectors right here for the coil packs, they also tend to break, so we got some of those as well. Part number on that is right there, and that should help you. I got 8 of those just in case all of them break. And the breather hoses from the valve covers to the intake tubing and the throttle body. We have some hoses right here. Here they are right here. I got all 4 of them, plus the little intake, the manifold that connects on top of the throttle body, where all these hoses plumb into. And you'll have to remove these hoses to get to the valve covers. And these are the little junction between the hoses. Also, if this breaks, like this is all plastic stuff, guys. I got this one as well. This is the tubing that goes from the... Here it is right here. The air filter, you have an airflow sensor. We're looking at this tube back here that goes from the airflow sensor all the way to the back of the intake manifold where the throttle body is. This is also plastic, and those 2 clasps can easily break. This is why I got this as well. Now, obviously, if none of this stuff breaks, we can always return it back to where we got it. And this is what it looks like, guys. These are the prices. This is the price for this duct right here. Here it is, if you can see it. And this is all the part numbers and the prices up to that. We're talking 2024 prices. And these prices are subject to change with inflation, guys. Here we go. These are all the part numbers and all the prices, and the total comes out to... Here it is. So just on parts alone, between all the small parts and the big parts, you're looking at about $250, not including the consumables, such as the RTV to get this job done. Plus the labor. If you were to bring it to a dealer or a mechanic, you're looking at another $1,000 in labors to get this job done. So pay attention, and we're going to get this job done, and we're going to do it right, and you're going to save yourself a lot of money. Let's get started. We will have to create a number of access points to get this job done. First thing we're going to do is remove this plastic cover. We will then remove the air filter housing, airflow sensor, which is right here, and we'll move it to the side. And well, let's start with that, and then we'll continue further. As you can see, this thing is leaking profusely. Reason why we are doing this job, look at this, the leaks are so bad. Albeit, this thing does not leak a whole lot because the oil level is still within the operating range. But even so, look at this. Look at all this oil. And it still has the original hardware, which are these torque screws. I don't know if you can see them. See it right here? Let me see if I can show you. See the original torque screws? These valve covers have never been removed. Or if they have been removed, they reinstalled the same hardware. This thing has 260,000 miles, and it is time. All right, so far, we took the air filter off, and it's all plug-and-play stuff. Other than this clamp right here, which is either a 7mm or a flathead screwdriver, everything else is plug-and-play. We did remove the airflow sensor from the duct, and We took off the air filter housing, top and bottom part, and then the bottom part just snaps into these grommets. And we took the engine lid off, and it's all looks like this. Super easy stuff. Shouldn't take you more than 5-10 minutes at the most. Here it is right here, guys. This snaps right off. This snaps right out. This, with these little clasps, these little latches, goes right on top of the bottom part right here. And the only thing that really requires some tooling was the airflow sensor. Disconnected the plug right here, and that 7mm clamp I was telling you about. So next, what we're gonna do, T30s, we're gonna remove these coils and put them aside. If we can tuck them in as much as possible out of the way. We're gonna do the same thing on the other side as well. You know, come to think of it though, guys, these things are so filthy with oil. I'm actually gonna remove the coils with the spark plug wires that goes from the coil to the spark plugs, because I do want to clean this stuff up, because this thing looks ugly. So next thing we're going to work on is removing these two 10mm bolts right here, 1 and 2. This is the duct or the tubing to fill and check the transmission oil. So we'll move this out of the way. We'll move the the engine oil dipstick out of the way. We'll shift this over a little bit so that it opens up this valve cover further. We'll disconnect all the little connectors on top, and as I showed you earlier, because these tend to break, this thing goes through so much thermal cycles, hot and cold, that these tabs easily breaks. That's why I ended up buying all 8 of them. Here they are. You see these tabs right here? Here they are. See these tabs right here? These tabs right here. These tabs right here, guys, easily break. And I'll show you. I wouldn't be surprised if some of these break off. Although, with all this oil leaking, maybe they're nice and lubed and it won't break. Again, we're going to move these 4 coils on both sides, and we're going to move the remaining part of this air duct all the way to the throttle body back there. And remove all these vent lines right here from the valve covers to the throttle body, and then make further room for the removal of these valve covers. Let's do it. As we said, we disconnected the coils from the top of the valve cover, and we just kind of tucked them aside over here for the time being. These will eventually come off one at a time and will be cleaned before they go back on, but for the time being, they're just tucked aside. Disconnected all the clips from the top of the coils, and it's kind of hard to mess them up. Can't really mess them up going on top of the coils, but just as I thought, each and every one of these broke as I was snapping them off the top of the coil. So 4 on this side and 4 on this side, and all 8 literally broke. No surprise there. I did manage to remove the coils on this side as well. It's going to be a T30 torque bit to remove the coils. And again, on this side, we also tucked them on the bottom here for the time being. And it will also come off one at a time to be cleaned before they go back on, because this thing it's got to look good when we're done. Because you know what they say where I'm from, the eyes have to eat too. And this thing right now is not looking good whatsoever. Again, all these also broke. Golly, I can't believe that. Of course, I mean, you know, that's what happens when something cycles thermally so many times. They literally all broke. Anyhow, we also disconnected, I don't know if you can see it, the inlet tubing from the valve cover. It's a E10, it's back here. I don't know if you can see it. Maybe here, let me see if I can shine. Right here, it's an E10 bolt that holds this part of the inlet tubing on top of the valve cover. It is disconnected from the throttle body. I did manage to dislodge this clasp on the bottom here and move this back. However, it's a very tight fit, and this hose is still connected. It goes from here all the way to this hose here. I don't know if you can see it. This hose, yeah, this hose here. So We're almost there. As soon as we remove this hose from here or from the inlet tubing, we'll remove that inlet tubing out of the way, and we'll proceed with actually removing the valve covers. Let's continue on. We are almost there, almost there. We depressurized the fuel line from here. There's a Schrader valve in here. Put a little Ziploc bag in there, push on the Schrader valve, and it'll depressurize the line. Once you depressurize the line, get ready for a little bit of fuel spill. You're gonna need to disconnect the fuel line from back here. Here it is, I already did it, guys. And it's a 17 millimeter. Put some paper towels or shop rags from under there. It's gonna be quite a bit of fuel coming out. Once that's emptied, cap them to make sure they're not contaminated, because mind you, fuel is coming from the fuel tank past the fuel filter. So what's going into the fuel rail, it's clean fuel, so we want to keep it that way. We also disconnected the vacuum line for the cruise control. That goes right here. Made ourselves some room. I don't know if you can see it. You can't quite see it, can you? You see it right there? Vacuum line connects right there, right on top of the throttle body. We're almost there. We're almost there. So we also disconnected the dipstick from the valve cover right here, because we're going to need to do that with the E10 socket. These are E10 bits. This is ready, just about to come off. It's not sliding out quite yet. It's looking like the coolant reservoir tank may be in the way, so I'll have to disconnect these two 10 millimeter nuts to raise the reservoir enough to clear this duct from coming out. Once that's out, we'll remove all the other lines. We also disconnected this line right here that connects to this ducting right here, as I showed you guys earlier in the back over there. Had to actually cut it right here because this baby was not coming up. This thing is so brittle. It's so hard. These are probably original lines. But anyway, we did buy all these, so not to worry about that. We are ready for this job. Like I said, we're going to dislodge the coolant tank with those 2 millimeter nuts. We're going to move it on top so that we can slide out the inlet tubing to the throttle body. And then we will finish by removing these vent lines from the breather covers that sit on top of the valve covers. And then we'll remove these valve covers. We'll do a little bit of cleaning before the actual valve covers come off with the pressurized air and some vacuuming, so that we eliminate as much as possible the possibility of grime and dirt entering the engine. We definitely don't want to do that. All right, let's continue on. Let's make this happen. We have the inlet duct removed, albeit now without damage, unfortunately. To get it out, I ended up breaking both clasps on the original one. And I did get all the ducting out that goes into the valve covers. We have all this stuff new, including the duct here. Couldn't afford taking a chance on a Thanksgiving weekend not having all the proper parts. The only thing is that in order to do this job properly and minimizing as much as possible the possibility of damage, we will have to drain the coolant and remove this expansion tank here and some of the plumbing out of the way, so that we can facilitate as much as possible the introduction of the new duct once the valve covers are done. So now the valve covers are next. They're coming off. We're going to take them off and clean them up and do some cleaning around this engine bay. Golly, this thing is filthy. And yeah, let's take these valve covers off, guys, and at least we'll be halfway through the job, and we'll clean up a little bit. Let's do it. And the valve covers are finally off. Here they go. I gotta tell you guys, this engine looks very, very clean internally. Well, that's the result of routine maintenance. You know, you change the oil regularly every 8 to 10,000 miles, and you use quality oil and stay up on it, and the machine will take care of you. You know, they're both out, and all we have to do is clean up a little bit here. We're gonna clean those valve covers and the breather elements on top of the valve covers nicely. We're going to take them apart, clean them all up nice. We're going to use some good solvent material to Make sure that they're properly cleaned, and we will not touch them with our hands, but rather we'll use latex gloves to make sure that they're not contaminated by any natural oils or other oils. And then when we go put the RTV on it and the gaskets on it, hopefully it'll be nice and leak-free. We'll try to maximize as much as possible the possibility of creating a leak-free environment. And here's the other valve cover gasket here. Yeah, it looks good. I'm very pleased with it. These are very delicate components. So it's an aluminum magnesium alloy, and make sure that when you do clean them, guys, when you end up doing them yourself, you do not use any metal, but rather solvents, plastics, plastic brushes, not metal brushes, because you will scoff the protective coating that it's on these valve covers, that to eliminate as much as possible the possibility of corrosion. And so yeah, you don't want that, especially because these are alloy, aluminum alloy valve covers. So plastics, solvents, do not use metals whatsoever, even for cleaning the grooves. And we will talk about that, but I'm going to call it a day for today, guys. It's already at night out, it's dark, and it's getting cold. We will do the cleaning in the morning and put the gaskets on and put it all back together. And we will also drain the coolant so that we can remove that expansion tank altogether to maximize and facilitate the installation of the intake duct that connects to the throttle body. All right, guys. You have a good evening, and we will see you tomorrow. And don't forget to subscribe, and we will continue the quest in the morning. Good morning, world. Back at it again. We got the valve covers for this M113 engine outside. We're going to degrease them, and we're going to clean them. We're also going to take these breather elements that sit on top of the valve covers off, and we're going to clean the whole thing up. You can use whatever you want, so long as whatever you use, it makes for a very clean surface without any residue on it, because otherwise the RTV will not be as effective. I'm going to use some toluene. You can use toluene, gasoline, dish soap with water, whatever works for you, so long as these come out clean. But after they come out clean, make sure you pass some kind of solvent on them, especially where the gaskets and where the RTV goes, so that they remain nice and clean without any residue on it, because again, otherwise the RTV will not work. Let's get started. And after countless hours of cleaning and scrubbing and degreasing and cleaning some more, the valve covers are finally clean. Also found that during the cleaning part, I found some corrosion, but let not this be the point of this video. See it? Look at this. It went under the coating and it started pitting the... Look how deep this hole is. I don't know if you can see it. This will eventually have to be replaced. This is for the right side engine. And but it's okay. We're going to make this happen. So make sure that everything, like I said, is fully degreased and cleaned just like so. Especially the channels, because we're going to put RTV all over this channel, even around the holes here, because there is a channel in there as well. I don't know if you can see it. And so it is around these holes. And yeah, we're going to use a Permatex Ultra Black for a gasket. And it's good. It has good characteristics, good properties, and it is oil resistant as well. So what I'll do, this is what it looks like right here. It's a black substance. I'm going to put some in a syringe, and then it becomes easier to put the substance down. What we're going to do is we're going to actually fill the channel with a nice healthy bead, so that when we flip this baby over and we put it on here like so, it'll spread on top of the groove nicely, like this one right here. It's gonna spread on it'll wrap around the groove nicely. And then we're gonna install the new Torx. You do not want to use the old aluminum screws because they will break. So you're gonna use instead the new Allen screws. They look like these. They're steel. The part number for these is 00446, and I will go through all the part numbers at install of all the stuff that you have all the proper part numbers, because in the beginning of this video, I showed you the part numbers. But we didn't really talk about the part numbers. But we will do that properly during the assembly. So you're going to need a size 4 Allen socket like so. And that's pretty much it. These are your two. So we're going to use 2 screws for the right side, and we're going to use, I believe, 3 or 4 screws for the left side. Let me see. 1, 2. I believe there's only 3 screws for the left side. All right, guys, let's make this happen. And what we'll do, once we install this part of the breather element on top of the valve cover, we were going to torque it down to 35.5 inch-pounds. Also, before you put this in, make sure that the hole right there, it is clear, because that is also where the vent line goes through. You see it? It is clear. So that is all. Also, one last thing. When you put the screws in, which is what I'm going to do, I'm going to use some Loctite 242, because of thermal expansion and contraction that the engine is subject to and the constant vibration. These screws tend to loosen up, and we will do the same thing also on the valve cover screws when we install the valve covers on the heads. So again, a bead of a black, ultra black 82-180 Permatex will fill the groove right in here and also around the screws in these holes right here. We'll flip it over, put it on top of the valve cover. We're going to put these screws right here, torque them down to 35.5, and we're going to use some Loctite 242. All right, guys, let's make it happen, then I'll show you what it'll look like. All right, guys, this is what the bead looks like, as you can see. Make sure that you do not have any dead spots. Take a good look, inspect it before you install it on the valve cover, so that you have a seal all the way around. Because if you have a dead spot or an air bubble, that will become your leaking point. You see it? With the syringe, I put it all the way around, and we should be all right. Now this piece could go on. And this is what it looks like. What you also want to do, make sure that all the RTV oozed out all the way around, so that you know you have a good invasion in that groove, and that it came out all the way around, and it should do a good seal. Also, I put a couple of washers in here because for me the screws were shanking out, and one of the reasons for that was because I didn't properly clean the ends of the holes. Make sure you do that. Blow them out, clean them out, get in there and remove all the old RTV from these screws. Otherwise, these screws will not go all the way in. You're going to think that you have 35, or what did I say it was? 35.5 inch-pounds of torque, but it's tapping out on the old RTV, and it's not holding down the breather element of that goes on top of the valve cover. So don't forget to do that. Clean out the holes. And I put washers in. You do as you see fit. All right, let's move on to the next valve cover. Here it is, guys. This is the second bead for the left side engine. Make sure, again, you have a bead all the way around. You see it? And you have no dead spots. Like right here, for example. Let's fill that one up. Where's the syringe? I had it. Hold on. See that dead spot right there? That's what you don't want. We're going to fill that up. There it is, like that. There it is. We continue to inspect and make sure that we're good all the way around. There's some more right here. Don't be shy about this stuff. I mean, it's the objective is to make sure that this thing doesn't leak. Okay, we continue all the way around and make sure that there is no dead spots in the channel. And we are looking good. Also, make sure that that breather hole is clear on the right side as well. What I did this time is I actually used a small drill bit, and I went in there, you see it, and I cleared out all the old sealant. There it is, you see it? It's all gone, but nevertheless, I will still use a washer. So I'm going to put this down, and I'm going to use the same screws that I told you guys earlier. I'm going to put some Loctite 242 on it, and we're going to torque it all to, again, 35.5 inch-pounds. Let's make this happen. It is now time to put the gasket on the actual valve cover. Now, as you can see, let me flip this baby over. This part is done. I put the breathers on already, and they are torqued to spec. Now, the instructions on a Permatex, on a Permatex Ultra Black states that for best results is to put the bead on wherever it is you're going to put this bead on, then finger tighten the screws, and then let it wait for an hour, and then torque it down to specs. Now, I did only torque it down, well, not only, I did torque it down to 35 inch-pounds, the actual breather elements of the valve covers. However, there's still 1, 2, 3, and 4 holes. Those will be torqued to 80 inch-pounds on top of the head. Now, what I'm going to do, I am actually going to put a bead of Permatex inside of the valve cover as well before I put the gasket on. I will not do that on the head, and for the simple reason is that the valve covers are cast units, and the surface is, I don't know if you could tell, it's very porous. It's not machined, say, like the head. See how the machine on the head, the head is a machined surface, and it's so polished that the gasket by itself would do an excellent job at sealing and making sure that there is no oil leaks. However, the same cannot be said for the valve covers. This is why I'm only going to put a very small bead on the inside between the valve cover and the gasket. Now, here are the gaskets right here. This one is for the... Just give me 1 second. This one is for the left side. Part number is 113-016-0221-OE. And by the way, everything is available for purchase at Auto House. They have all this stuff, especially for Mercedes. Whereas for the right side, part number is 113-016-0321-OE. I recommend going with the OEM equipment because it seems to fit best. So let me put a bead of sealant, same way, very tiny, all the way around before I put the gaskets in. Let's get going. And here we go. The gaskets are inserted on the valve covers. And I did put, like I mentioned earlier, a little bit of a Permatex gasket maker on the back end of these gaskets, between a gasket and a valve cover. But you may ask, why would you do that when supposedly the gasket should be doing a fine job at sealing the valve cover, making sure that there is no oil leaks? Well, simple, really. The theory behind it is the same reason why, up until the advent of the synthetic corks, when the corks were made out of tree bark, the wine bottle had to be stored on its side in order for the wine to properly store, because the cork had to get wet. So with the cork wet, and then the wine would be properly sealed, it wouldn't oxidize, and would assure a long life of storage until it was consumed. Obviously, that also depended on the type of grape that you were storing. Ask me about that, and I could tell you all about some wine. I actually like wine, and I like to drink wine, and I used to be a waiter and actually even took wine classes. So yeah, that's a lot of the stuff that I learned. But that was the reason why I decided to put some Permatex on the bottom end of these gaskets, between the gasket and the valve cover, because the valve cover, it's porous. And the last thing we want, folks, is for oil to seep through over time between the gasket and the valve cover and eventually leak. That's the only reason why I'm doing it, guys. That's the reason why I'm doing it. I'll let you know how it works out. Hopefully the theory proves me right. All right, we're going to let this sit for a little while in according to the instructions as per the Permatex directions, to let this sit a little bit. And then we can actually install it and torque it down. All right, guys, we're going to wait for about an hour or so before these valve covers go on the engine block. Let's do it. The valve covers are down. What you'll want to do before you put the bolts in is do an inspection with a mirror to make sure that the valve cover, not the valve cover, but sorry, I had to grab a mirror, that the gasket did not slip out in any way, and you can see it's in there. It's fully seated, and it's not did not come out in any way, and it's sitting in place. What we're gonna do next is we're gonna put all the bolts in. I don't know if you can see it. I can see it from here. It's looking good. It's all in place. What we're gonna do next is we're gonna put the bolts in, and we're gonna use Loctite 242. Again, it's that mild Loctite, but it'll do a good enough job to make sure that under thermal expansion and contraction, or thermal cycles, this thing does not come loose. Because I'll tell you, when these bolts came off, a lot of them were loose, and they barely had any torque on them. I'm sure it was one of the reasons why this thing was leaking. All right, let's put these bolts in. Also, make sure that you clean the hardware, and you clean the threads of the hardware, so that when it goes on, that Loctite is effective. Now, all the bolts are the same size except for these two up here. They're the long ones. And same thing on the other side. All the bolts are the same size except for these 1, 2, 3, these 4 long ones on top of here. Okay, let's put these bolts in with the Loctite, and the torque on these is 80 inch-pounds. Now, what you'll want to do is you're going to put all the bolts in. You're going to start snugging them. You're going to move it from the center outwards, top to bottom, bottom to top, center to outwards, front and back, and the same thing on the other side. And you're just going to keep, it's tightening slowly from center to front and back, and top to bottom, and, in some orderly fashion, staggered way, so that you evenly torque down the valve cover. Again, the torque is 80 inch-pounds. The valve covers are on, and the next will be the coils. Now, I'm just propping these on, the valve covers, as you can see, just so that I know how the wiring to the coil goes. What I'll do first, before these get torqued down to 70 inch-pounds, what I'll do is I'm going to clean these coils up, because they're super filthy, especially the right side of the engine. So let's go ahead and clean these up, and then we'll torque them down to, again, 70 inch-pounds. The coils are in, they've been cleaned and installed. If you have to do the same thing, in other words, remove the coils to clean them before they go back on, because they were as filthy as mine, it is easier for you to disconnect them at the actual wire attached to the coil, rather than trying to pull the whole spark plug wire from the spark plug. Also, there's a ground strap under these coils. Make sure that ground strap, or that ground band, is nice and clean and raw metal, because that'll be your ground against the valve cover. T30 screws, Loctite 242, torqued to 70 inch-pounds on both sides, and make sure that they don't move, because that's how you know you properly installed them, and they're making good ground with the engine. All right, next we remove these. We replace the clips right here. Get yourself a set of precision screwdrivers for the watch stores. You can pick them up for cheap at a local Harbor Freight. You're going to need this to do the next job. I'm replacing all 8 of them. And the way you do that is you break these lock tabs. There's 3 on the outside on one side, and there will be 3 on the inside of the connector, right on top of the actual metal contactor. So don't stick your screwdriver in the connector, but rather in between the connector and the plastic housing of the connector, in order to break the tabs. Again, 3 on one side right here. Break them up with a small screwdriver such as these. Just flip them up. Then what you'll do, you'll slide out you'll push out the connectors, and you will literally grab them 3 at a time and slide them into the new one, so that you don't crisscross the wires. Also, part number for these connectors is, right here, 203, 545, 30, 28. I don't know if you can see it properly. Here it is, 203, 545, 30, 28. I am replacing all 8, and I'll show you what it looks like once these goes back in. Let's make it happen. Okay, all the electrical connectors are replaced. What you're gonna do before you hook them up is making sure that all your coils, all the leads inside the coils are all good. You're gonna inspect and making sure that all 3 of the leads in the coils are good and that they're straight. So when the time comes to plug in the connectors, they're good to go. As you can see, they're all straight and they all look good. Right there and right there. Now what you're gonna do also, inspect your work. Make sure that the leads inside the connectors are, first of all, they're not mangled so that they will accept the wiring inside of the coils when they connect. And make sure that the plastic, not the plastic, but the leads inside the connectors are to abutment, and then all the stops are in place and they snapped in place, and they all look good. They all gotta look good. Make sure that all the connectors, the leads inside the connectors are to abutment. And this looks really good. This also looks really good. Everything is to abutment and all the stops are in place. Do the same thing on the other side. Make sure that the leads are not mangled and that all the leads are to abutment inside of the plastic connectors. They all look good. Beautiful, beautiful. See it? There we go. These all look good, and this is how they connect. This is pretty self-evident. You can't really make the mistake, because they're all, the manufacturer already lined them up for you. Same thing for the other side. Now these are all ready to connect, so let's go ahead and do it. One. Look at that, beautiful. They connect beautifully. And this one also. There we go. Same thing on the other side. That's it. It's all in. We're going to install a couple of zip ties where zip ties are due, such as this one down here. Put a zip tie right here also. Kind of keep this in place. I'm going to put a zip tie here. And that's it. These coils and the wiring for it are done. We now move on to... we're going to take this... well, we're going to do all the vent lines for the breathers and the valve covers, and we'll go over this here shortly. Next, we'll install the vent lines that run from the breathing elements of or the breathers on top of the valve covers to the throttle body right here. So these are marked on how they go installed, or the routing of it. If you see, there's like 2 squares right here. You see it? This is how this is lined up. Same goes for this one. You have 2 triangles. You see them? This goes like this. Yeah. See the triangles? And here you have 2 circles. You see the 2 circles? So these are, that's how these lined up. The in between the lines, there is these connectors, and then you have your, let's call this a manifold, and this actually mounts this way on top of the throttle body in the back of the intake manifold. Now, so the part numbers for these components are, for this line here, it's this here, 112.01.80.282, and it's this line here. For this junction or this union, this one here, which is a softer But God, these things are so hard. This one here, the part number 4 is 112-018-0209. Then you have this line here, and it's this one here for this line here, and this one is 112-0180-382. And then finally, this line here that goes to the left side of the engine is 112-018-0182. And the little unions in between, which you'll need 3 of them. Now, mind you, I'm replacing all this stuff because the car has over 260,000 miles and it's extremely hard and brittle, and didn't want to take a chance. That's why I'm replacing all these components. These 3 unions, the part number is 117-990-1578A. So I'm going to put the new one back together, or I'm going to assemble the new one. I'm going to use some Vaseline or some petroleum jelly to assemble the whole union, and I'm going to show you how this looks like when it's all ready to go back together. And you should be able to install this whole assembly in is one unit. Also, on top of here is the vacuum line for the not the autopilot, sorry, aviation mentality, but your cruise control. Your vent line that runs from your cruise control mounts on top of here. Remember, we took it out at the beginning of the video. It mounts right on top of here. So let's put let's put the whole new one together, and I'll show you what it looks like. Here it is, guys. This is the new one right here, with all nice and flexible, soft rubber. And here's the old one right here. We're gonna go ahead and install this one now, and I'll show you how it goes in. Also, a couple of details here, especially one particular detail. For the line that runs on the left side of the engine, which was the right side of what we just looked at, there is a specified routing for it, and here I'll show you with the mirror. That longer line needs to hook up. I don't know if you can see it. Hold on. Let me see if I can point it. I'll show you. See that hook right there? I don't know if you can see it. See that hook right there? The line has to run through that hook right there before it goes on top of the throttle body, and everything mounts right there. You see it? The whole assembly mounts right there on top of the throttle body. All right, guys, let's put this baby in. The other end mounts here, and then the other end mounts right here. We'll put some Vaseline on these 2 sides right here, and then we could clip this back on. Let's do it, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. There we go. The suction lines from the breathers to the throttle body are hooked up. You see it right here, this one here. Then it runs under the tray, and there's a kind of a guide. And let me see if I can show it to you. Can you? I don't know if you can see it. Hold on. Let me focus on the light a little bit. Let me see. Anyway, it's back there, guys. I promise you there's a hook. Well, I showed it to you earlier. Let me see if I can show it to you this way. Here it is. You see it? The line is running right through the hook right there. And then it ends up right on top of the throttle body right there. You see it? Get you a little light. Let me see. It's a different mirror so you have a better visual. See it? Here it is. It's hooked up on top of the throttle body right there. See a little manifold, and that's also where the cruise control vacuum line hooks up. And then here's the other routing right here, and it hooks up right here. Now, let's not forget to take that rag out of the throttle body right there, which it just avoids the stuff from going in there. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to drain some coolant out of the engine cooling system. We're going to remove this tank so that we can install the inlet tubing right here so that we don't break these clasps here at all. And if you run into the same problem that I ran into, the part number for this unit is 112, 140, 03, 12. It's also right here. 112, 140, 03, 12. So this is the next thing we're going to install. And then after we install this, we'll install the other duct that goes from the valve cover. It's the bent line that goes from here. And it enters right here. But this will have to be done before we install the fuel line, because it runs right under the fuel line right here. And if we install the fuel line, we're going to have a hard time actually reaching. So the fuel line will be one of the last things we're going to do. But first things first, let's drain some coolant and remove that reservoir right there, so we have as much access as possible and we don't risk breaking the inlet tubing as well. All right, let's do it. Okay, before I finish to install this inlet duct, and yes, I did remove that towel at the throttle body. I wanted to show you what it involves before you decide to dive into this job. So you could see I disconnected the hose here, and I was able to move the whole expansion tank out of the way. Now, to drain the radiator, there is a drain plug, but Mercedes, in their infinite wisdom, decided to put the drain plug on the forward end of the radiator, which you can't get to. So you will have to disconnect the bottom radiator hose and drain the radiator. And yeah, before you do that, you're going to have to remove this bottom pan here. And this is what it takes to do the valve covers on this car. Let me give you some light so you can see what I'm talking about here. Sorry. Here it is. You're going to have to disconnect that radiator hose right there. I don't know if you can see it right here. This one here. Just let it all hang out, let it drain, and it'll drain that. Disconnect this hose here, and you will have then enough space to do this. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish installing this thing and installing all the hardware. Then we'll talk about the details and what it takes to finish this job. So just so you know, this is what it looks like to insert the inlet duct on an W163 with an M113-V8 engine. The space is super tight. And yeah, just do this and you'll save yourself a lot of money. Also, if you do manage to do the job right, such as in this fashion, and you can get that duct out without breaking anything, you will need to replace the seal at the inlet where the throttle body is. And there's two of them. This is the oversized one. You won't need this. What you will need is the 112, 159, 0080. This is the part number for the O-ring that goes at the mouth of the inlet duct, which is attaches through the throttle body. All right, let's go ahead and finish to put this in, and we'll cinch it down. We'll bolt it down with all the hardware, because we're going to have to put a bolt right through here. We're going to have to reconnect with a 10mm bolts right here, the transmission pipe here with this 8L clamp setup right here. So yeah, I'll tell you guys all about it once this is it's snap in. There's no bolts back there, so it's snap in assembly. All right, let's finish it. And the inlet duct, it is finally on. It is fully engaged. I don't know if you can see it. See it right there? It's fully engaged against the flange of the throttle body. There you go. Here's your inlet. Let's not forget to put that vent line. The vacuum line for the. I keep calling it autopilot, but it's your cruise control. Now it's time to put it all back together. That's how it is, guys. It's done. One word of advice to make sure that this job goes as smooth as possible once you have it this far assembled. Do not be shy about putting lots of Vaseline on that throttle body and the seal of the inlet duct. Well, I'm telling you guys, and I speak from experience, you're going to have a hell of a time to slip this thing on. And you'll know, it might feel like the clasps are engaged and it's on, but you will not know that it's on for sure until this hole right here, that is your mounting hole for the inlet duct, it is aligned, because otherwise it'll be cockeyed and it might look like it's fully aligned, but it's not, or it's fully engaged, but it's not. Lots of Vaseline, guys, lots of Vaseline. You know what they say, use Vaseline and things will go smooth. Anyway, guys, now it's time to put it all back together. We're going to install that other duct. Well, first of all, we're going to install this reservoir tank back to where it was. I put the clamp and all that back on. We're going to put this duct on here. We're going to put the bolt. We're going to install the transmission tube ADL clamps, and we're going to put this back on here. And we're also going to install this final piece of the duct, which goes from the valve cover to the inlet duct I was telling you guys about earlier. And it's the last piece of the puzzle for this whole job. And the part number 4 is 112-01-80482. And yeah, it goes from here to the inlet duct. All right, let's make it happen, guys. Let's make it happen. I'll show you at the end everything that I've reconnected back. Also, before I finish here, make sure you do not forget to connect this connector here to the back of the tank when this goes back, because that's for the warning that you're low on coolant. All right, let's make it happen. Sorry guys, I had to close the garage door again because it is cold out. Okay, the 10mm bolts are in. Here they are. The E10 bolt that holds the let me see if you can see it. The E10 bolt that holds the inlet duct is also in. Don't forget to put some Loctite on this hardware. Okay, what else? Where's that mirror? And I'll show you guys so you don't forget anything. Thank you for your patience. Appreciate you. Okay, here it is. Your vacuum line for the cruise control is hooked back up. The ducting for the, let me see if you can see it. I had it earlier. Here it is. The ducting for the, it goes from the left-hand valve cover, here it is right here, to the inlet duct is also plumbed in. Don't forget to use lots of Vaseline, guys. Germans like lots of Vaseline on their pipes. I guess it works well though, guys. It works well. It does wonders. While you're back there, before you put everything back together, make sure that none of your vacuum lines to the EGR valve, nothing broke, and everything is hunky-dory. Otherwise, when you start this baby back up, you may have some problems, and they may run a little rough. Could very well be because of back here. Also, inspect that there's no debris that shouldn't be anywhere. For example, I found some piece of plastic that was stuck in the diaphragm of the EGR valve. That could very well cause a malfunction. There it is. We're all back there. Everything looks good. All right, so far so good. All the ducting is back in place. Vacuum lines are back in place. Next, we'll hook up the fuel line. It's a 17mm line. And we hook this up right here. Again, lots of Vaseline so it goes nice and smooth. And it has a couple of clasps that just hooks right in. We're almost done, guys. We are almost done. Make sure that the radiator hose down there is hooked up. 7mm socket for the clamp. And then once you're done back there, down there, make sure that your airflow shroud is back in place. Here we go right there. For aerodynamic purposes and efficient cooling. Okay. Expansion tank. 2 10mm nuts. Make sure that the electrical connector is hooked back up before you put this back in. The auxiliary water pump is hung back up on this bracket right by the batteries. All the drain lines are in place. Everything is hooked up back together. And I thought this was the cruise control vacuum line. I'm not quite sure what this is for, you guys, to be honest with you. But I'm gonna stick with this story. Keep calling it cruise control. Key element here. Pay attention. This is an AN fitting, 17mm for the fuel line. When you hook this back up, make sure that the line itself does not chafe against anything. Back here, for example, for me, such was the case. It was chafing against the brake line over here. So what you could do, twist it a little bit before you tighten it so that this line does not touch anything. It is a braided steel line, and it has this plastic shroud around it, so it was okay. Nothing happened, thank God. The fuel line didn't break, nor did the brake line. start leaking. So we're good. All right, so that's finished. We also put the airflow sensor back on, and it's reconnected. All we have left to do is to put the air filter and all the ducting for that, put the coolant back in a tank, and we're going to prime the fuel line. We're going to turn the ignition on 2-3 times for the fuel pump to bring fuel all the way to the fuel rail, and we will see what happens next. I'm going to start it up and heat it up, and we're going to make sure that the whole coolant circulates through the whole system and it primes itself. All right, let's make it happen. All right, guys, moment of truth. Coolant has been flowing back into the cooling system. Air filter is back. Everything is back except for the engine cover right there. It's time to leak check and ops check. I have a flashlight ready. I have a mirror ready, such as this right here. And we're going to make sure everything works as it should. And while I do the ops check and leak check, guys, I just want to say thank you for doing this with me. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. Don't forget to subscribe, please, for more videos like this. And yes, thank you. Thank you very much. One takeaway from this job, if I was to share something key and pivotal to make sure that everything goes smooth and you don't break anything, remove that tank right there. Remove that tank right there. Disconnect it from under here and move it out of the way. Obviously, you got to empty out the cooling system first, and it'll save you a ton of time, hassles, headaches, and money. Let's prime the system. Let's see, make sure everything runs prime. Make sure that the coils are working properly. Igniters are working properly. I mean, not igniters, it's not a diesel, but ignition is working properly. 268,000 miles, guys, and this baby is running, and God bless her. She keeps on running, and what should do? That's what happens when you take care of the car. Prime it again. 1, 2, 3. Moment of truth. There it is, guys, and she runs smooth. Thank you guys for participating at this job. We will see you at the next time. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and take care.